This is uh, this is great for your humility. I see there's a sign that says Jack Seminar. I don't know whose idea that was, but today we're going to talk about the third step. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand it. And I really didn't understand what you were talking about when I came to this step. I was very confused. I thought perhaps I'd have to be a nun or something to take this step, or sit in a monastery with a hair shirt and transcribe things. But that was my idea of turning my life over to the care of God, and I really had a lot of difficulty with it. I'm a lawyer, and I'm in an adversarial business. You know, I have adversaries. And I just thought that if I took this step, I would be like Goody Two-Shoes, and I would not be a very effective lawyer. I really believe that, you know. When you have an adversary, you really can't telegraph what you're going to do, because then he prepares for it, and so I really wanted to be a conniving, scheming lawyer, and this third step was going to interfere with my career. That's the way I thought. As you could see, I was pretty well messed up when I came in here. And I just didn't understand what it was that you wanted me to do. Turn my will, my life over to the care of God. I just didn't understand it. You know, you people have a whole different language in here. Character defects, shortcomings. I mean, I really didn't know what you were talking about. And I honestly didn't know what you were talking about in step 3. There's a cop in my group at the time, a guy by the name of Mike Driscoll. And I complained at this meeting that I really didn't know what you wanted in the third step. I really didn't have any idea what was going on. I didn't want to become that nun. I didn't want to become a monk. I wanted to be a lawyer. And he said, do you believe you're an alcoholic? I said, yeah. By that time I had really believed in my gut that I was an alcoholic. And he said, then God's will for you is to go to AA meetings. It's that simple. Don't complicate it. And gee, that was a great break to me, you know. I could take the third step for my alcoholism and go to meetings. I love to go to meetings, so that was easy. And it just made so much sense to me, and it's so simplified. This guy had a great knack for simplifying things in AA, and particularly for me, who needed things to be very, very simple. It's come to mean a lot more to me, as it has to everyone, I'm sure, that's been in AA for any length of time. When I took the step for other areas of my life, I really thought I was doing God a favor. You know, hey, listen, now I'm going to do this, and you're going to probably like this, and I'm going to be good now. And that's the way it went. I've come to believe that the third step is really a master plan for going on with the rest of the program. It's a decision, and we could only make it as a decision because nobody can really turn their lives over to the care of God and their will over to the care of God as they understand Him. Saints do that, you know, and I'm far from being a saint. And so the only thing I could do was make a decision. I think the only thing that any one of us can do is to make a decision that this is the way we're going to try and think and we're going to try and act. I think that's the 12 and 12 tells us that's what will and lives over to the care of God means. How we think and how we act. And I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to make a decision to do that. And the deeper that decision is, the better I'm going to be with the rest of the program. It's like when we come to the sixth step, I have a whole thing on gardening, as some of you know. And this third step really tells me how deep I till the soil for the rest of the program. How I make that ground fertile to grow in the rest of the program. And it's a decision to try and think and to act the way I feel that God would want me to think and act as I understand Him. And I don't understand Him, or her, or it, or be politically correct, but it's God as I experience Him, as I've said last week. And I experience God in AA. I see what He does. I see how He takes people. We got 3 young girls in our group. I refer to them as the under 21 crowd. I don't know how old they are, but they're 3 very young girls. And God, they come in all messed up, and now 2 or 3 months have gone by, and they're smiling and talking and communicating with one another. And you know, you hear them talking at the beginners meeting, because that's the only time we let them talk, is at the beginners meeting. And it's a miracle. It really is. I know you can't call this thing anything else but a miracle, and that's my experience of God working in their lives, whether they know it or not. That power that's in this room that we spoke of last week. So it's not so much God as I understand Him, but God as I experience Him, because I really don't. I don't understand God as I think a theologian would like me to understand God. When we came to step 3 in the big book, those 3 things that I spoke of last week, it says that I admitted I was alcoholic and could not manage my own life. And 2, there's one of the under 21 crowd come in. And 2, that probably no human power could relieve my alcoholism. And 3, that God could and would if He were sought. And then it says, being convinced. And so that means, I think, being convinced of those 3 things, then we were at step 3. And we are at step 3. And this is how we let Him into our lives, I think. How we let God come in and relieve us of our alcoholism. I hear the third step referred to a lot of times as getting out of the driver's seat. Get out of the driver's seat. Don't be in the driver's seat. Get out of the driver's seat. I don't think that's true. I think that we're always in the driver's seat to some extent, because we have to take on responsibility for our lives. You know, this is a program of responsibility. We're going to take responsibility for our life. In Ireland, when they teach someone how to drive, they put a big red L in the car. So you know that it's a learner. That's who's driving the car. And my suggestion is, don't get out of the driver's seat, but put a big red L in the car. Because you need a guide, you need a supervisor, and you need an expert to teach you how to drive. I had a very wonderful father, and he taught me how to drive, and he was it was so nice when I think back on it and preparing for this step, how he would tell me, you know, accelerate, slow down, put on your signal light. And he taught me how to drive. He was my guide. He was my supervisor. And I think if I can enlist God to be my guide and my supervisor and my expert in this life that we have to live and we have to be responsible for. Life is here. We've got to live it. And someone said it's the only game that we spend the rest of our life trying to find out the rules. You know, we come in here, nobody knows the rules about life. We thought we knew the rules. And we come in here and they change the rules. And we spend the rest of our lives trying to learn the rules about living. And so when we have somebody guiding us and we have a supervisor in that car with the red L on it, it makes it easier. And I think that's what it means to me, rather than get out of the driver's seat. The big book goes on to talk about selfishness. That's one of the things the book really talks about. Of course, they say this is the disease of the self-centered. And I remember when I first came in, somebody talked about selfishness, and I said, selfish? I'm not selfish. Why am I selfish? I asked her what movie she'd like to see, you know. Don't I do that? I do. That's certainly not, that's very unselfish of me, it would seem to me. I don't always go to the movie that she wants to see, but I certainly ask her. That seems to me to clear the air. And I just didn't understand what you meant by being selfish. And the big book does a wonderful job on this delusion that we have when we come in here. If we can only control our environment, that's really all we want to do, right? I don't want to run the world. I just want to control the people around me. That's all. My kids, my wife, my people at work, that's all I want to do. I don't want to run any world. I don't want to be a world leader. Just want to control the people around me. And I know that if I'm able to do that, I'll be happy. That's what the book says. Well, we know that that's not true. We know that's not true. We suffer from this delusion. And you know, I always hear this word denial in AA. And I think that's psychobabble, denial. I think that's where that comes from. Some therapist with denial, denial, denial. The book never uses the word denial. They refer to it as a delusion. And I didn't know much about delusions, but I had a client who had delusions. And we tried her case, and the psychiatrist that testified said that the client was psychotic because she had delusions. And I think that's really what Bill is trying to tell us in this book. It's not denial, it's delusions. We have this delusion that if we can control the people around us, we're going to be happy. Not a denial. We have a delusion that we think it's okay to drink. We have a delusion that tells us we're not alcoholic. We don't know where the car is in the morning, and there's a delusion that says, oh, I think I can drink this afternoon. I feel much better, you know. That's not denial. That's a delusion. I don't know how else to term it. And it's real insanity. It's really what it is. The book talks about selfishness, resentful, fear, foolish pride. And somehow we come in here and we think that if we stop drinking, I won't be afraid anymore. I won't be resentful. I won't have foolish pride. And I won't be selfish. All I have to do is stop drinking and they'll all go away. But we know that's not true. Because these are not physical ailments that we have. These are spiritual ailments. And they can only be relieved by a spiritual power. And that's where the third step begins to get into our life. This spiritual power that can relieve these spiritual ills. It's not physical. I don't limp when I come in here. I got problems. I got resentments. I got a list. I have, I mean, when I think of the anger that was in me when I came into AA, that was the way I communicated. If somebody didn't do what I wanted them to do, I went into a rage. And then that's how I got the message across. When my children didn't do well in school, I went into a rage. Isn't that what every parent does? You mean they sit down and they talk to the kids? Huh? They try to find out what's going on in school? Why would you do that? You yell at them. And then they become better, don't they? They get smarter when you yell at them. And the louder you yell at them, the smarter they get. Isn't that right? That's the way I thought. If we just do that, scare them, terrify them, take away things from them, that's it, isn't it? Huh? That's what I thought, And I was wrong. I find out that if you get rid of these spiritual ills through the steps of this program, you'll have a lot less chance of picking up a drink. That's the way it's reverse, I came in here thinking the only thing wrong with me is I drank too much sometimes. Not all the time. I wasn't drunk. Nobody can stay drunk all the time. Nobody. And I certainly wasn't. There were there were days on end when I was communicative. I could, answer the phone, that kind of thing. So, see, I really think that we are spiritual beings living a human experience. And these spiritual ills that we have when we come in here can only be relieved by the spiritual program. And drinking is just a ticket. You can't get in here unless you're drunk, right? We won't let you in the door. You got to be drunk. Get out. Go someplace else. Go to a Rotary Club. Go to the Lions Club. But you got to be drunk to get in here. That's the ticket. And once you're in here, we'll show you how to relieve these spiritual ills. Because that's what our problem is. I never knew that. No one ever told me that. The book also says that troubles are of our own making. Isn't that crazy? Troubles of our own making. You mean that I'm responsible for the way people treat me? God. But that's what it says. It says that. We must be rid of selfishness or it kills us. Selfishness kills us. That's a little nuts, isn't it? But that's what it says in here. Selfishness kills us. Not whiskey. Selfishness. Oh, my goodness. What a thought to run around and rummage around in your head. That selfishness kills us. And I wasn't even selfish. I had nothing to worry about. But I didn't care about anybody else, did I? Huh? I mean, I didn't care what happened to anyone else. I didn't want to hurt anybody, but, I was number one. And I realized that quickly when I come in here. And then it talks about God as we understand him. And it gives him a couple of titles. And you can pick your own title, whichever you're more comfortable with. He is the director. That's good, I suppose. I like the father title. He's the father, we're his kids. I like that. Because I had a wonderful father, and he not only taught me how to drive, but he taught me how to ride a bike. If I can picture God as my father, that's a wonderful analogy for me because of the love that I have for my father. And principal and agent and new employer. I like that, new employer. That's very meaningful to me. I hear guys come in here and people, I don't have a job, I'm sure there are some people that are hurting in AA, but I tell you, something happens to us when we get in here. We get jobs, we get houses, we get apartments, I don't know, it happens. And it seems to me that he is the employer. and He gives us all that we need. He's a great boss, God is. He gives us everything we need. Genter is a shining example of, there's a man out of work for like a year and a half, I think, or something. And he picks up the newspaper one day and he falls into a tub of butter with a job, you know? It just happens. Because he's got a new employer. He knows that, and I know that. And I know there are, I'm sure there are people that have ambitions, and no one says that simply because you take the third step you lose your ambition. I think ambition is part of it. I think ambition is what God wants us to be. I think He wants us to be ambitious. But He gives us all that we need. Thank God we don't get all we want. How many times have we said to ourselves, God, I'm glad that didn't happen. That thing that I really wanted to have happen, boy, am I glad that didn't happen. Because then if that happened, I would be somewhere where I didn't want to be. And something else happened in between. And if we can only take that attitude. I think one of the things you hear in the third step is whatever God has in store. Whatever He has in store. And we have to know that He wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. He wants us to be rid of all these spiritual ills, as selfishness and fear and false pride. He wants us to be that way. As long as we do His work well, He will be close to us. And we will lose fear, the book says, of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We are reborn. I believe that to be true. Do you ever talk to somebody in AA? They always talk about their life before they drank and how it's been since. When I was drinking, this happened. You know, it's like you had two lives. I used to do this when I was drinking. And when I was drinking, this happened to me. But since we're in here, it's a different life. And if that's not reborn, I don't know what it is. The third step prayer, which I've memorized, because the reason I memorized it is I told my sponsor, I said I had a tough time memorizing the prayer, and he said to me, are there some difficult words in it like elephant? And I said no, and he said then memorize it. So the third step prayer kind of sums it all up, I think. God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will, that victory over them. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. Bondage of self really describes how we come in here. We are so self-absorbed, self-centered, selfish. I'm number one. Whatever happens to me, my children are a reflection of me. That was, if you don't do good in school, you know what that means? They're not going to think I'm a good parent. That's what that means. It may mean something to you, but it means to me that I'm not a good parent and that you're a reflection of me. And everything was turned toward me. Everything that happened was turned toward me. My sponsor told me that I had temporary custody of my children. Temporary. And soon they would be on their way. And I kind of helped them be on their way, to be honest with you. When they got to that age, I charged them so much board they had to leave. But I think this bondage of self is what, you hear the expression, he's all wrapped up in himself, and I think that's the bondage of it. We just can't get out of it. We can't think beyond what's good for me. What am I going to get out of this? Why am I doing this if I'm not being paid? What's going on here? What's in it for me? I think that was my attitude. And take away my difficulties. And the only reason that we ask God to take away the difficulties is that so it may bear witness to those that we would help. And that came back to me when I first came in here. I looked at the people in this room and the rooms like it. We weren't here at the time I came in, but we were on Ora Wampum Street, I think. One of those streets in White Plains. And there was always some poor guy asleep in a hallway as you go up the stairs. But as I came in here, I saw what, these people look good. Whew. I didn't see people like that in the saloons. Saloons, they were nice and puffy and beery and slit eyes and, they were shaking and, yelling. These people here were calm. They were laughing. And they weren't drunk, and they were laughing. I'll never forget the first time I went to an AA meeting. I was a sophomore in college, and I went to write a paper on it. I don't know why, but I did. But I couldn't get over people having fun and not drinking, because that's what I associated with fun. Got to be drunk to have fun. But that's not so. And here, people, they look so great. And I knew that they weren't having a lot of trouble. So they were bearing witness to me of God's power. And I think we all do that. We're a power of example to people coming in. There was a guy in the Mamaroneck group some years ago. This step in the book, they tell you to take it with somebody that you trust. They suggest your wife or your confessor or your minister, and to think well before you take it, and voice it out loud. And there was a guy in the Mamaroneck group by the name of Jerry. We used to call him Construction Jerry. And he was a character. He reported that he went home this night to do the third step. He said to his wife, "I want you to do the third step with me." And she said, "I don't want to do the third step with you." And he grabbed her by the back of the neck and he knelt her down on the bed, and he knelt down and he recited this prayer. And she got mad as hell at him. He come back the next night and he said, "That is some tough step, that third step. That is a difficult step." I don't suggest that you do that. I do suggest that there's a friend of mine in Canada who is really my guru. Don't ever tell O'Keefe that, but this guy in Canada, he has a group in Canada where they, when they come to the third step, they all stand and they recite it together out loud. And the book says that sometimes this has a great effect. And he recounts a number of stories where it had a great effect on the people in the room. And it's my daughter's just celebrated 20 years in AA. And when she was on the third step, she came home one night and she said, "I want to do it with you." And we both knelt down and we said it out loud. And it's different somehow when you do it the way the book says to do it. Pick someone that you trust and say it out loud. It's very meaningful. It's a great beginning to the rest of the program. And it's my experience with the third step is it's part of the process. It's part of the process. I really begin to accept God's will for me. Someone said that I don't know the key to serenity, but as a step toward it, if we can accept God's will before it happens, it's a long way toward it. I think accepting that bottom line is a long way toward some serenity. That's another thing. I mean, who knew about peace of mind? Huh? When I was out at that Mahogany, with the money and it's wet, You always had wet change in your pocket. I thought I'd have arthritis of the hip because of the wet change in my pocket. I mean, I really wasn't concerned about peace of mind. Peace of mind was Rob Roy. That was peace of mind. That's what I knew about peace of mind. When you come in here and you get that serenity and peace of mind, and boy, nobody better interfere with it. You know, you really begin to love it. Peace of mind. Hey, that's the way it's supposed to be. You know, they weren't kidding, these people. They want me to be serene. They want me to have peace of mind. I heard it referred to as the summer of the mind. Peace of mind. And it's, we get used to it in here. Boy, do we get used to it. And we guard it jealously. And when things interfere with it, we really have to put one of these steps in our lives to bring it back. We'll talk about that at some other time. But this third step is the beginning of having God come into your life, as I never dreamed He could, and begin this process of spiritual surgery. It is a spiritual surgery, getting the selfishness and the fears and the resentments and the false pride out of your life. And when those are gone, then you can really, really enjoy the life. You know the rules. You know, it's great when you know the rules of the game. Now I turn to Mary Ann's questions for step 3. My sponsor told me not to complicate the third step, just make the decision and keep it simple. Would you agree? How could I disagree with that? Huh? Keep it simple is really what Dr. Bob told us. That was his legacy to us. Huh? When he left, he told Bill, for God's sakes, Bill, don't screw this thing up. You know, keep it simple. Keep the mumbo jumbo out of it. And I guess he was referring to science and what have you. Keep it out of it. Just keep it simple. And it is simple, isn't it? God comes into our lives and we get rid of those things that got us all screwed up. And it's a decision, because that's really all we can do. And you know, I don't know if the old time radios had this, I'm dating myself now. I hate to fall into this, but it's, they had like a green light in them, and if you were right in tune, the green light would be up and down, and the radio sounded fine, you know. But if it was off one way or the other, the light was expanded and it wasn't so green. Well, that's the way I think. If you're really in tune with, you know, the way God wants you to think and act the way God wants you to act, boy, life is clear. Life is clear. It's a nice sound. It's a nice life. It's when we try to screw it up that we get into a lot of trouble. I was told I didn't need to try defining God. Is that right? I don't really know how you do that, you know. It's just as I experience God. I experience God in AA in so many ways. It's truly a miracle. I don't know what else to call it. I think, as I said, we're the luckiest people on the face of the earth to have this program. And you know, there is a ticket to come in, and not everybody makes it. And then some, you know, there are some people who just come to AA to stop drinking. You know, I think we have to recognize that. It's like you give your child something for Christmas, and he pulls it out of the box, he puts it to one side. You've all seen this happen, right? Puts it to one side, he plays with the box. You know, doesn't take what's inside the box. And some people treat AA that way. You know, they just come to stop drinking and they play with the box. And you have to recognize that. I hear a lot of people getting angry with people in AA because of it. You know, you know, we can't be angry about that. That's the way some people treat AA. You know, just come to stop drinking. That's all I want to do. Don't tell me about running my life. I don't want to know about God. I don't want to know. That's okay. What? You're not playing what's inside the box. It's like the guy that wins the Irish sweepstakes and leaves the money in Ireland, you know. You can leave it there. Nobody's going to force you to take it. But it's there if you want it, you know. May have to pay a little tax to get it, but it's there. So I was told not to confuse AA with religion, right? Yeah, I don't. The last thing I think about AA is that it's a religious program. Although some of my brethren on the bench have not. I was reading a case the other day where somebody refused to go to AA because it was a denial of the First Amendment right about freedom of religion, and the judge agreed with him because he read the 12 steps and he said there's enough God in here. Blah, blah, blah. Not a well-reasoned opinion, let me assure you. But at any rate, it came to the damages that this guy was supposed to get, and the judge awarded him $1. So that's how much he was damaged about the religion. You know, religion worries about your soul, I suppose, and AA worries about your life. I think that's basically the difference. Then there's some religions that don't believe in a hereafter. I don't know about them. But AA is concerned with your life. I had this theory that, and you can disagree with it, but just don't tell me about it, all right? I have this theory that when we get up there, there's only really one question that they're going to ask. Have you been a good AA member? That's all. They don't want to know about anything else. Have you been a good AA member? This is the stewardship that I gave to you. I gave you membership in Alcoholics Anonymous. What have you done with it? How have you handled my stewardship to you? And if you have been a good AA member, in you go. All right? I also think that you may go up there and you're going to say, well, where is it? You know, where's all the clouds and all my friends and this heaven that I'm supposed to enjoy? And he's going to say, you just left it. Oh? Yeah, you just left it. Your troubles were of your own making. You just left it. You should have made the most of it while you were there. So, you can disagree with that, but that's my theory. Bill W. wrote, in AA Comes of Age, each man's theology has to be his own quest, his own affair. Is that what God as we understand him means? I would think so. AA Comes of Age is probably one of the least read and most important books that we have. Just to comment on AA Comes of Age. The treatise of the traditions in AA Comes of Age is remarkable. It's really wonderful. I think it's probably the only work that treats them the way they should be treated. And if you ever do a traditions meeting, I suggest that you bring AA Comes of Age with you or read it before you do it. It's really a marvelous treatise on the traditions. And of course it is our own affair. Wasn't that a wonderful thing to have in this program? God as we understand him. God as we understood him. Everybody has that in their... Nobody can argue with it. You know? I think you have to... There's a certain wonder in life that we have to guard carefully because we become so callous to it. I think when somebody sees their first child, it's a certain wonder about that. Then they grow up and they get to ask for things and so forth. But I mean, how can you deny the existence of a supreme being? And if you understand him as a supreme being, that's fine. If you don't, then however you understand him is all right. And of course, it was I think one of the great things that happened to AA, that phrase, God as we understood him. Can the Lord's Prayer help me with the third step? I think the Lord's Prayer is a very dangerous prayer. And that may be surprising to somebody. But we know it so well, don't we? The Lord's Prayer. It's dangerous because we don't follow it sometimes. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We will be forgiven to the same extent that we forgive others. I wonder if we follow that. I think sometimes we don't. I think the Lord's Prayer is a very dangerous prayer. I think we ought to pay more attention to it. And certainly it can help you with the third step. Give us this day our daily bread, etc. Because God does give us our daily bread. That's what we need. And of course, man does not live by bread alone, so we got to have a job and things of that nature. When people say turn it over, is that reaffirming the third step? Yeah, I suppose turn it over means let God take care of it, and I suppose that is really very helpful in the third step. The thing I don't understand is I took my will back. I never understood that. I don't know what people are talking about when they say I took my will back. Does that mean my thinking is off? If that means my thinking is off, then I think you should say my thinking is thinking, or something like that. But I don't understand taking my will back. And then I gave it back to him, and then I took it back. I had my will this morning, and then I gave it back to him in the afternoon. I don't understand that. But I hear that a lot. I hear that a great deal about taking my will back. But turn over, I suppose, is what the third step is talking about, and letting God run your life. Letting God sit alongside of you while you're learning how to drive. Making sure that we're not alone no matter what happens in this life. No matter what tragedy we're going through. And no matter what, we all have good things happen to us. Everyone in the room has, good things happen to us. You get a bonus, or you get, good things happen. You have a healthy child. And I wonder if we turn that over. We always turn over the bad things. We always turn over the tragedies. Well, we should turn over the good things too. I think, O'Keefe has this theory about saying thanks, and I do say thanks several times during the day. I do what the book tells me. I don't ask anything for myself from him. And I do say thanks. And O'Keefe's theory is that God comes into his office in the morning, and his secretary, whoever he is, says, we got 485 petitions this morning. 385 want to win the lottery. 600 want a new car. 1,200 want a new house. And there's one guy that just says thanks. And God says, give that guy that says thanks anything he wants. So I think saying thanks is a great way to. There's two ways. The best way to establish a relationship with anybody is ask for help. If you want to establish a relationship with anyone, be it a man, a woman, whatever, if you ask for help, you can establish that relationship. And I think that's the way we establish a relationship with God, is to ask for help. And don't forget to say thanks. That's all. That's what I think it means. Don't forget to say thanks. Will the following help put the third step in my life? Let go and let God. You see, I thought I was doing God a favor, but I don't know what else you can do except let go and let God. What else? I mean, can I change what's going to happen? Can I change what's going to happen in Congress on the tort reform bill? Absolutely not. But I tell you, it's got me concerned, but We'll see, right? Let go and let God. And hope that all the senators and the congressmen will do the right thing. Thy will be done. That's another part of the Lord's Prayer, huh? We never really say that. Thy will be done. That's the thinking and the action, huh? Isn't it? Thy will be done. Probably a short form of the third step. Thy will be done. The Serenity Prayer. I think the Serenity Prayer will put a great deal into your life. And the wisdom of the Serenity Prayer has nothing to do with formal education, I don't believe, Wisdom is just life's experiences, and have the wisdom to know the difference, or what we can change and what we can't change, really brings about the serenity that we've been trying to get. I don't know how many times I've had trouble in my life, and since I've been in AA, and I say the Serenity Prayer constantly, because it really reinforces the fact that you can't change. One of the first things I learned in AA was I could not change other people. God, was that a surprise? I thought that if I, yelled and screamed and prayed, but I cannot change people. Oh, turning their will and their life over to the care of God. But the biggest problem we had when we came in here was alcohol, and we turned it over to AA. If my sponsor said, Jack, in order to be sober, I want you to stand on your head in the corner of the room for 15 minutes every day, I would have done it. I would have done it because I really wanted to get sober. I wanted what he had. So I turned my alcoholism, which was the prime mover to get me in here, I turned it over to AA when I came in. And now I think the third step is simply an extension of that, and asking you to turn your thinking and your actions over to God as you understand Him. I was in AA, I don't know, about 6 or 8 months, and some little plumber, guy by the name of Matt Carey, who has gone on to another experience, said to me that drinking was not important. I said, what the hell are you talking about? Drinking is not important. It's the most important thing in my life. This guy wasn't even a lawyer, and he was telling me that. And he says, drinking is not important, Jack. It is not important to a good life. God, what a strange thing to say at an AA meeting, that drinking is not important. I tell you, that ruminated with me for a week or so, and Jesus, this little plumber was right. I turned it over to AA, and it's not important. It's not important to a good life. I used to think it was the most important thing in the world, to be able to drink like Dick Powell. Yep, there I go, dating myself again. But he was my hero, Dick Powell. He could drink nice. Always drink nice. Had his nice pork pie hat. He'd sit by the bar and have a scotch and soda. Never get drunk. The only time he'd go out is when he got hit on the head. But that was my goal. That's the way I wanted to be. But I couldn't drink like Dick Powell. I didn't think anyway. But I think the thing that the third step, it gives us that comfort, I guess, that God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. And if we try to think and try to act the way He wants us to, we're going to be okay. It's a great, great comfort. And we get on with the rest of the program. And next week, I won't be here next week, I'll be in Texas. But the week after that, we're going to talk about the house cleaning that has to be done in order to get rid of these spiritual ills. Remember, they're not physical ailments. All these things that we want to get rid of are spiritual ills. And we are a spiritual being. And we're living in a human experience. And we get rid of spiritual ills with a spiritual program. I don't mean to sound like a preacher, but sometimes I just fall, because that's what this program is about. It's a spiritual program. And we have to talk about things that are spiritual in order to talk about the program. The book says that they would like not to get involved in that, but we do. And I know some people don't agree with what I say, but that's okay as long as you don't tell me about it. All right? So we'll see you in 2 weeks.